Hey guys, I'm Desiree,
Yeah, I'm Basil.
and welcome to episode 4 of Two Creators and a Microphone, a
Mhm.
podcast where we get on the mic and have candid conversations about tech, video production, gear, and living the creative lifestyle.
Yeah. So, Desiree, as
Basil?
always, what have you been up to?
Well, just working, kind of, same old, but keeping an eye out for any new gear because guess what's coming in a week, a week and a half?
NAB.
NAB.
For those who really don't know what that is, NAB is it stands for National Association of Broadcasts, which it really is beyond the broadcast at this point. You're talking about content creators, anybody who's creating anything, video, film-wise, filmmakers, broadcast world, everything is there, and all the gear that we like is there, and anybody who's anybody is going to be there. And usually they take this opportunity, most manufacturers, to launch a new product that may be coming out. So it's going to be in Vegas, which it's always been, and we're going to be there. Not physically.
Not physically. in in spirit, maybe remotely.
Yeah. So the next couple episodes that we're going to do after this one is going to be geared towards NAB, what's coming out, what's happening, news, and we hope to be able to rattle off a couple of those to keep you all up to date as it's happening.
Yes, because we are probably going to have new items to add to our wish list after NAB is over,
Well, of course.
as usual.
Oh, that's
then,
the thing about content creating. You always got to have a fat wallet.
Yeah, always, because there's always something new that's coming out, or you bought something, then they came out with a new version that's better and has the features that you've been wanting, and then you're like, oh, now I got to get rid of my old gear to get the new gear, or just get it. Well, like some people just keep buying and then they have like a collection of the same product,
Yeah.
just different models.
Not me. I cleaned house, but we'll talk about that later.
So what gear have you gotten? Because since we're always talking about getting gear, it seems like we're always getting gear on at least a monthly basis, some new little tiny product that we add to our arsenals.
Okay, so I've gotten gear, but it hasn't been like it's, groundbreaking new gear. New in terms of I bought it new, but it's nothing that recently came out. So I do a lot of audio work, and I like my Sennheiser AVX. It's a true surefire piece of equipment that has held its own, and I never have any difficulty with it. I turn that thing on, and it works. It works on a 1.9 gigahertz network, and usually nothing is on that. Everybody's on 2.4 or 5.8, so there's never any interference. It works. I bought one of those, and then I always use the Countryman B3 microphone or lav because it's nice and thin. If I wanted to do something special, I could put it in, like in your cap, around your ear, in your shirt, in between your shirt, or even in a pencil or pen, because it's really tiny. So I just added another one of those to my collection, and that's what I've gotten recently. And then I got a nice little toy.
Well, he refers to it as a toy, but it's actually not a toy. But
No.
I guess,
No,
when
DJI, it's not a toy. It's
when
Go
you
ahead.
use Countryman and Sennheiser stuff, you think they are pretty, top-notch audio equipment, but then you come along with this little DJI mic, and then you look at it, you're like, oh, no, that's not going to do the job of what these other mics can do. But Basil learned the hard way.
Yeah, so, well, it wasn't the hard way. This is hats off to DJI. So after we went on the set, I think it was going to be 4 people speaking. It was at a podcast, round table kind of talking. And my friend had the little DJI mics. Each person was already mic'd. set up, everything was good. There was a little interference every now and again, like every 20 minutes, it would be like a sound of interference from someplace. So he's like, we should use this as a backup. And he goes in his bag and he pulls out this little toy. And I was like, what is that? And he's like, oh, it's a DJI mic. It records internally to itself, 24 at 24 bits. And I was like, oh, what you gonna do with that? And he's like, and it has his magnetic back. So, the table was metal, so you could connect it on the table. Excuse me. So he connected, put it on the table, close to the main speaker, 2 of them, the magnetic, so they just stuck there. And, it recorded internally. It wasn't coming into my sound bag or anything. All right. Done. Get home, start editing. And out of 30 minutes of talking, the lead speaker said something, and there was an interference right at that point where she spoke one word. And on that word, it was like a crackle, and that was it. So I got the audio from the 2 DJI mic, and it was crystal clear, and I just took the word and brought it in post, and done. And then I started looking at this little toy more seriously. Not to mention, everything is just so tiny. This thing is like so tiny. You could put this anywhere, and you could run lavs in it if you want, mics in it. The B3 doesn't work on it because it requires some sort of a power. But yeah, that's a new gear bag in my gear bag, in my audio bag. So
even if it's, a backup, it's always great to have something as a backup.
Trust me, you could be all professional if you want, but if your gear fails and that works, you're going to take what works.
Exactly.
So let that be a lesson. It doesn't matter about the name brand or the high-end quality or whatever. If you have to capture audio or video for that matter, what you have and what's working, that's what's working.
Exactly. Well, some gear, actually just one item I bought. Actually, I've been pretty good this year. Usually, probably about this time, I've already bought some type of expensive gear or whatever. But I bought a Sony 2x teleconverter used. So it was still a little bit expensive, but not as much as a brand new one. Plus, you can't even get a brand new one now. They're all on back order.
Yeah.
So I was able to get one for my 70 to 200 millimeter lens and got to actually use it for an air show that was just flying over my house. Really, I didn't have to go anywhere. I just went out to my driveway.
Well, that's nice.
I just kind of waited there, to see which fighter jets or airplanes came by, and got to use the combination of the 2x teleconverter with my 70 to 200 Sony G Master 2.8 lens. So it was actually pretty good. I mean, I still have to go over some of the footage, but I was, the air show was 2 days, and then they rehearsed 2 days before that. So I got some test shots during one of their rehearsals, and I mean, I was able to see pretty much, depending how close they were to the ground, because those fighter jets can go straight up really, really high. And actually one of them did. And I lost focus because then it was just like a white spot.
Right.
In my camera. I was like, okay, he's just way out of my focus range. But I mean, I was able to get some really, really good shots that I could see. I still have to go over because during the air show, I was using my A7 IV, and when I was reviewing those shots, of course, now I started to see spots on my footage, and I'm like, what is going on here? Apparently, I guess my sensor is dirty. It's actually being cleaned right now. So hopefully that solves it. I'm hoping it's nothing else.
And that's a sensor on the Sony A7 IV. Okay.
Yeah. So then midway, I guess through the air show, I switched over to my A7S III, and I was able to get everything without any, weird spots on it. But where you could see, especially with that little boost from the teleconverter, it
Right.
was really good. Like I was able to see it a little bit much closer, especially if they flew over my house versus, zooming by my
Right.
house. But still, a lot of it was shaky because then I was on manual focus. So I have to see how much of that was actually usable. But
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely something good to have is a teleconverter, especially if you have a longer lens and don't want to, invest in something like a 600 millimeter lens unless you do photography that requires
Yeah.
that, because your
If
average, photographer is not going to need a lens that
right.
long.
If you need it and that's your job, like we have a friend who does photography, sports photography, like on the sidelines of games. Hey, you need that because you can't get that close. But I think that's a good price, good buy you got, and it saved you. I can't wait to see some of that footage of those jets
Yep. And
because I kept hearing them.
they were surely, they were loud, and some of them came like right over us. Like it was a good, of course I'm looking through a camera versus looking directly at them, but so, it's good. I was like, maybe next year I'll actually go to the air show because they do a lot of things like at, like on the ground right
Oh,
there
okay.
at the
Because I was
base.
gonna say you're right next to the base.
So, right. I mean, basically I could get everything if they come my way. That was what I was learning the hard way, was if they came where I'm at, I could get it. But if they went, out to the ocean, I couldn't get any of that.
Right. Right.
And it was a waiting game, basically, just waiting to see, or hearing them from a distance and going, where are they coming from? Where are they coming from? And then also there was a lot of clouds, like huge clouds, so you could lose them in the air
Right. Right.
easily.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that you picked the ultimate test to try and track a fighter jet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like a challenge.
Wow.
So we have upcoming, next is our gear chat. So we're going to go over actually the Canon recall on the R10 and R8.
Yeah. So these are the latest cameras by Canon that's been released, and I think they're saying something about some sound in the camera when you're taking pictures or video. But anyway, if you have registered your camera, Canon would have already notified you if the recall was indeed in your camera, because it's not all of them, it's just some of them. And they would repair it, of course, free of charge. So at least that's a good thing.
Exactly. Because you're going to pay a lot for a camera and then have to get it fixed? No.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a bummer that you have to recall it if you're working with it, but at least you can get it repaired.
Exactly. Then also we have the rumored Canon R1.
Alrighty, so I'm excited about this camera. I don't think I'm going to buy this camera, but I'm excited about it. And the rumors have it at 102 megapixel, all right, stills. And I think it goes down to 85 megapixel, which is still ridiculously high.
Yeah.
And I think they target this camera. I think the slogan was Jack of all trades, master of all. That's what they were saying about this camera. So it should be a camera that can do it all. Photo, video, 12K video. We don't know if the specs are going to be like internally or out externally, but we do know that that they were going to be using a new type of CFast Express type C cards, but these are supposed to be a little faster, and there's rumors that it may be in conjunction with Angelbird. So I don't know what they're doing in terms of that, but we definitely know it's going to be 102 megapixels, 12K video, and a slew of specs. I'm not even going to go through all of the specs because it's too early, and it's a rumor right now. Definitely the R1 is coming. We just don't know what the specs yet is in that particular camera. But I mean, I'm thinking, okay, if you bring out this camera right? That can do both 12K video and up to 100 megapixel in photo. What does that do for your cinema line of camera, Canon? I mean, what? You have C70s out there, C300, C500s. This thing is 12K. That's more than whatever the cinema line can do. So it's going to be interesting to see where this camera lies and how it falls with the rest of the Canon lineup.
And what would you guess? Let's do, a guesstimate of how much it will cost, especially, 12K, 102 megapixels, putting that in account.
This is supposed to be their flagship camera. Rumor has it like between $9,200 and $1,100.
So definitely a very specific audience. Unless you're a content creator that can afford, just to upgrade with that amount, but
right,
definitely a specific audience.
Yeah, this is definitely the high-end person, the fashion photographer, and it's definitely high-end. You're not gonna get this unless you're doing some serious work, and I hope you'd have to work for it. But I mean, we could always rent if there's there's a specific need for that. I'll just rent it. But it's always exciting to see them. Any camera manufacturer push the envelope 100 megapixels,
Right. And then it also gives, the chance for other camera competitors to, okay, let's try to outdo Canon.
Yeah. Huh? I'm sure your Sony is going to be right there trying to do something, if not already, just waiting to launch it. Maybe at NAB.
Maybe. Who knows? Well, we'll definitely find out soon.
Right.
But speaking of Sony and new cameras, the new Sony ZV-E1 was announced.
Yes.
Basically, it is a A7S III, just in a more compact form and targeted specifically for content creators.
Yes, bloggers. There's a lot of people who's been. When we talked about it, it hadn't been launched yet. So we had the specs, but we didn't have all of the specs. And I think we were like, it may be full frame. We weren't sure if it's going to be full frame or Super 35.
Right. We kind of thought that was like a really far-reaching
spec
for it.
Nope. They did a full frame.
Yes.
And so that is a game changer for something to be that small that you can take anywhere. Have full frame, and on top of that, if you have any Sony lenses, it's gonna work on that little camera body.
Right.
My only thing is a little pricey for someone who's just getting into it. Is $21.95, something like that.
Yeah, it's about almost $2,200.
So it's gonna, if you're just starting out, I would not recommend this unless you can afford it. If you can afford it, then by all means, I'm recommending it. But if you cannot afford it, the older models to these, which was Super 35, there are like, you can get them used for like $530, or even new, right around $700 with the built-in lens. So, because it actually comes with a kit lens.
Yes. I think this is definitely for if you were a creator using, let's say, your phone, or a different type of camera that wasn't, top of the line, or even, mirrorless or anything like that. I think this would be the camera that they would upgrade to, for an intermediate level. Someone starting out, trying to figure out, hey, am I going to do this every day or, regularly? No, this is, kind of expensive. Even their old like RX100 models would be like a better budget-friendly version than this one. But if you want to change lenses, that's the best part about this, is that you can use your full-frame lenses. You don't need to be like, oh, I need to go get APS-C lenses.
Yeah, I could see you using this, Desiree. Like, you want to go run out and do a quick vlog, and you already have your lenses. So I'm going to just take this small body, put my lens on it. And a lot of times when you're out in the street filming, when you have a big camera, everybody's like, what's going on? What is he doing? What is she doing? But when you have those little
Right.
tiny things, you're like, oh, okay, they're just a regular person filming something.
Right.
And the thing does 4K and 4K 120 at that. So
Yep.
definitely, again, Sony pushing the envelope always.
I was even thinking about, should I get it for my Greece trip, in a few months,
Right.
because I took my A7 IV on my cruise. What was it, last month?
Yeah.
And I think I thought it did the job because I wanted to do both photos and videos. So
Right.
that was why I took that versus my A7S III. But I still was like, I want to be able to do both without having to have two bodies. And I just went very minimal. I took the A7 IV with my 24-70, and I thought that was enough because I was able to get close in on some shots, but still I was wide enough to it.
Right.
But my only concern is if I were to take the ZV-E1 with my 24-70 G Master lens, I feel like the majority of the weight will be my lens versus the camera body, and I would be like, wow, my lens is like really big compared to this body.
You could always get the kit, which is 20-60, I believe.
I think so. There was a 28-60.
28-60.
Zoom lens. So I could, for an extra, it looks like maybe
$3,000.
Actually, $300 if you get the body with it'll be $24.99 versus.
So it's $24.99 with the kit lens?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you could have that option but I don't know if that's a crop or it's a full frame lens.
Full frame. Yeah, it's a full frame one.
Yeah. That I don't know about too much about that particular lens, but yeah, that would be a smaller setup. But we'll see. I still have a few months to decide, and if anything, I could always rent it.
There you go. That's what I'm saying.
Rent it for the entire time versus paying $2,200 for it. But then, I may like it too much and be like, okay, I'm going to buy
I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it. Yep. When you put it in your hand, you start using it, you're going to want it.
Yeah, that always happens. That's what happened with the teleconverter with me. I was like, I only need it for, certain things. But then I was like, it's on sale. It's used. I can't get a new one at the moment. Let me just buy it.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
Yeah. So our main topic of this episode is, are your technical skills valuable in 2023 as a content creator or a filmmaker, photographer? Because nowadays, there are a lot of things that are, programs, software that are coming for creative jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So is it necessary to still have those technical skills, or are you just going to let AI or, some software take over?
So, okay, let's do this. I'm going to give you my take on it, and then we can kind of like debate it. So if you have the skill set, okay, let me talk about something. A pilot, I saw this pilot, and he gave me an example of a great pilot versus a pilot who was just starting. And he said, you have two bags when you fly, In the first bag, you have luck, okay? You're going to get lucky, meaning like if you take off, you're never going to hit any birds, no bird strikes, nothing like that, no bad weather. That's all luck that you're going to get, the perfect condition. But when your luck runs out of that bag, you have to go into the second bag, which is going to be experience and skill. And that's where I want to turn that around into like what we do. You have a bag when you're first starting out, and it's just, you're just winging it. You're just lucking out. You don't have right equipment. You're learning everything. But then that second bag, it's going to be the experience and the skill set. And I feel as though anyone with with the second bag that has the experience and skill set can take any software or anything that's coming out, AI, and they can utilize it even better. Anybody could utilize it, but the person with the skill set is just gonna take it to that next level always. I am using AI stuff on certain things that I do, and I think it's gonna be here. It's gonna be here, and it's here to stay. So you could either embrace it, you could fight it. I don't think it's gonna matter. But okay. So what is your take on it? And then we could debate on it.
On AI, well, definitely, I think at the moment it will not take over everyone's jobs. At least it won't replace it.
Right.
But because, it's still glitchy. They're working on it. But I do see down the line, yeah, at least for certain fields, it will become a little bit more, I guess, the preferred choice for people to go. Because for me, like, I'll give you an example. I was looking for someone to kind of redesign my logo for like my tech channel. I wanted like my initials, and I went on Fiverr. I took 2 graphic designers, kind of telling them the same thing. Like take my initials, DR, kind of make it into a monogram. Intertwine it, make it into an image. That's you're the graphic designer.
Right.
Design it, in a nice, cool way. And what I got was like, maybe like a font as like, okay, here's, the font, the letters as a font versus like my little creation, which was like kind of my signature impromptu of the initials. So it was like kind of me going back and forth like, hey, do you have something that like they kind of intertwine versus, okay, you put the D and the R and put maybe one on top of the other or one coming out of it. Like I could have done that with AI, I felt like, versus I'm going to a designer and I'm going back and forth with them trying to get them the way. But then, it's like, oh, you have, this many revisions before they want to charge you and stuff like that. So a lot of people, I think down the line will be like, well, why am I going to go to a designer that's going to, limit me on the revisions and not really give me the product I'm looking for when I could kind of, if I, go through AI, right. AI is going to give me the same thing like these designers gave me. Okay, if you're just going to use a font for my initials, I could have done that. I'm going to the designer because I want something designed. I want something created that's an original.
Right.
So if it's, if people are getting that, they're going to be like, well, if I just need something very simple, I'm just going to go to AI for it. Versus, okay, no, I want this designer that's going to actually draw it and create an original concept.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are always talking about this. I do believe AI will replace jobs. It may not be right now in 2023, or maybe it's already in the process, but I do believe it's going to replace jobs. And I'm going to say that because when I am doing work, you and I, we're kind of like a one-man band doing it all. And there's so many facets of it. We're good at one thing, and you may not be as good in something else. I draw, but not quickly and not as nice as I would like. But trying to get somebody to sketch something I want, or to draw something I want, or illustrate something I want, it takes time. Then it takes money because they have to get paid. And, I just went to AI, told them what I wanted, and I was like, that works for me. So that's eliminating that graphic guy. I know a company that was looking to hire a graphic artist just last week, and they put brakes on that. And now they're using, I heard they had 5, graphic artists in their art department, and they got rid of 4, and they just have 1 in there. And that one guy, rumor has it that he's using AI to come up with these concepts so quickly. So right there, I mean, I think with the skill set, you'll still have the job, but it may be a little tougher now. You're going to have to really hone in on your skills.
Especially if they're, like you said, if there was a team of 5 designers, now there's 1. Well, now that person can't do the job of 5 designers. They're going to need some type of help, but it's going to be cheaper to go to AI versus hiring 4 more designers.
Yes. And I mean, the list goes on from graphic arts to writing. We all know ChatGPT, and now it's becoming more intelligent with giving you ideas of a show, ideas of thumbnails, all sorts of stuff.
It even writes scripts. You can tell it to write a script for a film or
a song.
Yeah.
Soon it's gonna give you a beat.
Yeah, soon. Yeah. Wait for that one to come out. Beat AI or something like that. But yeah,
maybe it's out already. We just don't know.
Who knows, right? But I think, it has its pros and its cons. But for one person shows that you need the help, but you can't afford to get the extra help, AI is going to play a big role in that and helping you with your workflow. Like, I'm starting to use it now, and it's helping me do things so much faster that used to take me so much longer to do. That, take me hours to do. I was able to do it maybe like in 2 hours and double the amount that I was able to do.
Right.
In that short amount of time.
It's definitely here to stay. And then with the AI going into, you see like it's going into the camera range. The new Sony cameras having AI built into it. Then you also have software, NLEs, editing software is starting to put that in it. Adobe, I don't know what you're waiting for.
Well, Adobe had Sensei, which is technically their AI, but it's like little by little. You saw certain things maybe in Premiere or different apps, but it's in there. I know they're working on it. Firefly, depending on what you ask it for.
Yeah.
And that's also the other thing with AI is that it needs a human prompt at the moment. It's not like AI is just writing scripts to movies and producing them and filming them and editing,
Well, I hope not.
When it does that, then yes, that I think will be a very scary moment when AI is just doing it unprompted on its own and releasing it.
Yeah.
But it still needs that human element to it at the moment. So if you don't do it, then, AI can't just come up with it by itself.
So I think the bottom line here is hone in on your skill set. Always try to improve your skills and experience, because nothing could top that. Nothing.
Right. And also with, are you still, once you have those skills, you can still do the job even if AI is down. ChatGPT was down, what was it, maybe 2 weeks ago? They had some type of outage, and I remember seeing someone on Twitter writing, ChatGPT is down. I forgot how to do my job now. I don't know what to do. So it's like, okay, you rely a little bit too much on AI.
Yeah,
you need to still have the skill set that if the internet is down or ChatGPT is down, you can still
get your work done.
Your work done, right.
Prime example is you and I were working for the same company. And, we'll go to these different sites and buy like an intro or a lower third, a flashy intro, lower third, or I don't know, some transition. But this company was like, they weren't doing that. And we had to actually create it. And I created it. It takes a little bit more time. But if push comes to shove and somebody wants a unique one or a specific thing, I can create it. And that's where skill set comes in. And if you can create it, you could actually make money on selling your lower thirds or selling your transitions or selling your LUTs, because you have that skill set. And like I said before, nothing could replace that.
Right. And even when you buy, let's say you buy someone else's LUT or plugin or even, lower third file, sometimes you wanted to do something a little different.
Right.
That it's not there, but then if you don't know how to do it, then you're like, well, I can't get it. You're either going to have to learn how to do it or get somebody who knows how to create them from scratch and then work with them to get that made.
That has happened to me. stuff, and I'm like, I don't want that yellowed up hair there. And I'll
Right.
just dive into that auto. I think they had an After Effects, and I had to figure it out, and I changed it.
Yeah. And everyone creates their own file, differently. So even
Yes,
when you buy them, then you have to try to figure out that person's way of organizing the files, because some of them organize it
yes,
better than others,
yes,
and how to go in and actually edit the color that was hidden that you didn't know
right,
how to do it because they hid that particular layer in some folder and didn't tell you,
right.
because that's happened a lot.
Yep. Uh, Sometimes it's just it saves time, but then sometimes it's frustrating too. But again, because we have that skill set and we've learned it, when that happens, it's easier for us to figure out what's going on and fix that problem.
Right.
You know. Let's see. What
But
else?
also, yeah, definitely it doesn't hurt to learn the skill set and to keep learning. It's like there's always something new to learn. Even if a plugin can do it or AI could do it, it's still to your benefit to learn how to use it.
So, talking about learning, I am learning DaVinci Resolve. And I know we didn't have this set for the program, but Adobe, seems like every time I have a large project, it seems like Adobe crashes on me. And if it's in the daytime, and you could pretty much get one of their tech support on really quickly to help you, but sometimes I don't want that. Why did my camera go out? Why did my camera go out? I'm gonna have to edit that. Where is that? At
Yeah.
3724.
Yeah.
And now I'm darker too. So
Yeah, you're dark. Did it switch to like your laptop?
No. It's still on my
Your light is not off?
No, my light is on. Let's see here.
Did your camera overheat?
No, I think it reverts back to the last setting that you had saved. So to f-stop.
So what were we? Oh, DaVinci. Like,
I'm going in on it. Let's see Adobe take me to their stuff. So one thing I'm gonna say that I know we don't talk too much about is that I'm learning DaVinci Resolve. That's a product by editing software by Blackmagic. I'm using Adobe Premiere currently, and I'm like, every time I have a large project that I'm working on, it seems like Adobe crashes or something happens with it, and I have to get online with their tech support. And if it's in the daytime or normal business hours, you can get their tech support. But when you're on a project overnight, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning, that's when stuff happens. And now you have to just wait until the next day to get that problem resolved. And everybody has been saying, oh, just use DaVinci Resolve. It's not a monthly payment. If you buy any of their products, you get the software. And I've been using it. It's a little different than Adobe, but I'm starting to get the hang of it. And I'm like, why am I going to stay with Adobe when I could go to this thing and it has so many other features in there that Adobe does not have? So.
and it's great for color correcting, for color grading.
Well, we were using it for years just for color grading, and until they started getting their editing part of it. So yeah, I'm learning that, and there's some other software that I think you should learn. So I think you should always be learning. You should never be stagnant in what you do. Just because someone may call you and say, "Hey, I need a DaVinci Resolve editor," and if you can't do that, you mean, but I do Adobe. Well, I want a DaVinci Resolve editor.
Right, because sometimes you do see that for like job descriptions for people looking for an editor, must know how to, edit on. I mean, nowadays I'm seeing more Premiere, but that could change very soon because a lot of people are switching over to the DaVinci Resolve, or some people love Final Cut and they ask for a Final Cut
Final Cut
editor.
editor. Yeah. So, if you like editing and you want to be getting work in it, then you should be looking at other things. Unless Adobe fixes that problem. Adobe.
Yep. And plus, I've been seeing there's a particular website, I think it was called Motion VFX, where you could buy, like we were talking about, plugins and things like that.
Yeah.
Most of their plugins are for Final Cut and for DaVinci Resolve. Only a few for Premiere, because I get their email like almost every day about a new plugin, and it's never for Premiere Pro. It's usually DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut, or both of those, and not Premiere.
And funny you should say that, because years ago you would only see Final Cut and Adobe, and I'm seeing more DaVinci Resolve stuff popping out. I remember when I started looking at DaVinci Resolve, you couldn't even find tutorials on stuff. Now there's a plethora of tutorials on getting started with DaVinci Resolve. So that just tells you that they're creeping up. And they give away the software for free, the beta one. So
you can't beat that.
No.
Especially if you can't, you can't, or you don't want to pay that monthly subscription for Adobe, which, I see where they're going with it, but not everybody can really afford that. I know some people still use like CS4 because that was like you were able to buy it outright, and nowadays you can't.
So I have some people asking me they're international countries, and they're like, hey, I'm just starting out doing whatever. I do fitness and I want to make my own videos and edit them. What should I use? Should I use Adobe? And I want to say yes, but I can't recommend that to them, because in the Bahamas, they won't accept the credit card just because it's an international. So the credit card systems may not work unless they have like a U.S. credit card. So that monthly subscription won't work for them, because that card thing with the banks over there won't work. And that's the problem that some of these like third world countries are running into. But hey, I could say, hey, download DaVinci Resolve. So he downloaded DaVinci Resolve, and he's learning that. And what can I say? Now, the great thing is you and I use Adobe. So if I have a project, you can share the project files. And a lot of the people in the industry that we work with also use Adobe. So it's really great to get a project file from them and start working. You could work along with them. Another reason for DaVinci that I was thinking is when I use the A10 mini switchers and the cameras, it records each individual camera and it records it as a project file. But guess which project file it's using?
DaVinci Resolve.
Duh, because they make it.
Exactly, especially if you have a few, Blackmagic either cameras, gear that they make. It's to your benefit to use that, because of course it's going to work better than you try to either use it on Premiere or anything else. That's, they made it specifically for that and that whole little, environment.
Yeah. And by the way, when you buy any of their products, they give you the software for free. The full version is free. I mean, come on now.
Exactly. It's just, I think it's I want to use, I want to start learning DaVinci Resolve. I feel like I don't have the time. I have like all these other things I want to do in the meantime. So I'm like, maybe when I could get some of those projects done, that I could dedicate time to actually learn it and then help other people learn it, because on my YouTube channel, that's what I'll do. And I can open it up to DaVinci Resolve tutorials in addition to the Premiere. Because people are always going to use Premiere, but I want to learn it myself as well. I went in it to kind of fool with it, but things are in different places. So I'm like, I really need to like focus and find, these little features and where they are. Because I think that's more of the learning curve. It's just finding where all those things are and what the shortcuts are in there. But I think if I'm not mistaken, you can either, unless this is only in Premiere Pro, like if you had shortcuts, like you could bring them in like I think it's Premiere, that if you had like say Final Cut Pro shortcuts that you were used to, but you want to use them while you're in Premiere, like you could bring it that. I think it's with Premiere, maybe not with DaVinci Resolve, but
I don't
maybe it
know.
might be, or vice versa, like, because that's the only thing, like you're used to, oh, I know what this shortcut is and I know what this is, but in DaVinci Resolve it could be something completely else. So it's kind of learning that environment, because really editing is editing. It's just you have to know where those tools are
Exactly.
in each platform.
Yeah. So I am. It is definitely that learning curve to learn something new, and that's why it's taking me and is taking me so long to maybe migrate over fully, because I get a project, I could do it in half an hour. All right. I go and Resolve because I've tried to do it, and it was taking me. I was like past half an hour, an hour and a half. I was 2 hours. I was like, I can't take it, and I just went in Adobe and bang, done.
Right.
So I think, but my personal projects now that I'm doing that has no time limit, those are the ones that I'm working with in DaVinci Resolve. And but the key is, if you're out there listening and you're not editing, just choose one right now, whichever you like. All of them will do the same thing for the basic stuff, and then you could try to decide later what you want to do.
Right, because sometimes you start it and start a project and then you're like, oh, life interrupted, and then you stopped doing it, and then you're like, oh, I should really get back into that. So at least for that, in that case, DaVinci Resolve is good because you don't have to pay monthly.
Right.
So if you take a break from it for a few months, it's not like you're paying for something you're not using.
Right. Exactly. I started off back in the day with Sony Vegas. Okay. I don't think anybody even knows what that is. And I still have it on my computer, Sony Vegas. And two friends of mine also edit with Sony Vegas. Then Sony sold it to another company, and they brought Vegas back in a different flavor. And I got that. And then I also was using Final Cut Pro too. Right after I started I didn't use Final Cut Pro because I didn't have a Mac, and I was all PC. And Final Cut Pro only runs, of course, on a Mac. But the other job I was working at, they were using Final Cut Pro. So I learned Final Cut Pro. Super easy, super intuitive. I like it. As I'm using, at that time, Adobe was not so big. They were only Photoshop. People were only doing Photoshops. And then I think was another one I learned when I was at the news station, which I can't remember the name offhand right now.
Was it Avid?
Avid, that's right. And they had the boards to go with that. And then when I came to the company where you were working at, they were just migrating from Avid into Adobe.
Yep.
So we used Adobe, and so it's a great experience to be able to, because I can tell you right now, I can pick up Sony Vegas and I'll be like, oh, I remember how to do this, or I can go into Final Cut Pro and still edit. So again, going back to that second bag, your skill set.
Right.
Put that on your resume.
Right. It's more things you can put on your resume, additional skills. I mean, it would be great for me, to learn all of them. Final Cut Pro, DaVinci Resolve, Avid. But like, I think I even saw a TikTok a few weeks ago about someone, they showed a job description for an editor, and it required, it was like, must know Avid. And the person was complaining on the TikTok, basically saying, nobody uses Avid anymore. Why are you forcing me to, use Avid when everyone has moved on to Premiere, to DaVinci Resolve, and all these other programs? Like, why are you limiting?
Well, the broadcast world still uses Avid a lot, and I understand why, because they use it with the hardware. So
right,
yeah,
in that sense, that makes sense if you're in the news world. But yeah, for I guess what we do,
no,
not everyone uses Avid. No. At least not anymore. Everyone has either moved on to one of the other three.
And talking about AI, which I know we're running out of time, but an AI, there's some editing software and AI that I was looking at just yesterday. I just stumbled across it and I was like, what? I can just drop in my clip, it arranges it for me, and it does it to the beat of the music, believe it or not. So,
Yep.
once I experiment with that a little bit, I'll tell you what the name is.
Yep. Well, that is it for this episode. Thank you so much
Okay.
for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed this topic. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your preferred podcast platform or on our YouTube channel and enable notifications so that you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, we will also love it if you could rate this podcast and leave us a review on your listening app of choice. It only takes a few minutes, and it will help us improve the show and reach new listeners. And be sure to follow us on social media. You can find us on Instagram at 2creators and a microphone, and on TikTok, it's at 2creators and a mic. Thanks again for listening, and we are 2 creators dropping the mic.